you can do multiple values. So sine, let's do this. Let's say I want a function called sine that tell me what is the sine of a certain number. So if num is greater than 0, I want to print positive. Else if num is equal to 0. So in R, the statement to ask whether an element is equal to another element is two equal signs stay together. Print 0, else print negative. So this is my sine function. Oops, typo. There should be bracket. So if I were to do sine of -2, sine of 10, and sine of 0. You can also put multiple conditions within a single if statement, and in order to do that, you can do the ampersand and the vertical bar for n and the vertical bar for all. So if 1 is greater than 0 and -1 is greater than 0. Most part are true. So let's look at this statement. 1 is greater than 0. This is true. -1 is greater than 0. This is false. So 1 is greater than 0 and -1 is greater than 0. This statement interprets out equal to false. So if we are running this block of code, the statement inside the else block will be printed. On the other hand, if we are not using the ampersand, which means we are not testing for and we are only testing for all. So let's see, 1 is greater than 0 or -1 greater than 0. So in this case, there's one part is true and the other part is true. So the interpretive nature of R make debugging code writing in R very straightforward. Sometimes I can just take out a statement within if else and do the testing on that to see whether for a certain value I am expecting to fall into one block of code or the other. So let's go back to the challenge. So for this function, I copy it into the Etherpad for easy viewing. So for this function, you have to use a function called plot underscore distribution. This function would plot a box plot if the length of the vector is greater than a specified threshold. So let's say if you do a plot distance of data of column 10 and the threshold is 10. So for each column you have 60 entry. So the threshold is greater than 10. This would produce a box plot chart. And if you are running on the same data set, but you are only looking at the first 5 rows, so this is less than the threshold of 10. So this will display a strip chart. And this is what the function calls look like. They say that using the box plot, so you can just do box plot the 10, and that creates a box plot. And if you do strip chart, and this is a strip chart. So the calling of the two functions to do the graphing is straightforward. What you actually need to do is to create the conditional statement that determines, depending on the threshold, whether to do a box plot or a strip chart. And another function that you can use is called length. Length allows you to know how many elements within a vector. So length of column 10 is 60, length of column 10 and row from 2 to 5 is 4. We only have 5 left, but just if you're done, just put the green sticker up and let me know. Doesn't matter. So you really can do the close bracket and move the new else. The L has to start on the same line as the bracket. So if you go down, for example, RStudio, it'll give you an error. So this is the result of that challenge. You just do plot distance equal to function variable input DTA, default threshold equal to 0, calling length equal to length of the data set, of the data vector that you are using, and if length is greater than the threshold, we are calling a box plot. Otherwise, we are calling a strip chart. So here's an additional challenge. So let's say now you have 2 collaborators, and one like to see box plot, the other one like to see histogram, and you don't want to write and maintain 2 sets of function for each of them. You want to use the same one, and you want to do it so that when they're using your function, they can easily customize that. So the goal is to use an additional function called use box plot, create an additional argument called use box plot with the default value is true, and which means that if this variable is true, the outcome will be a box plot, otherwise it will be a histogram. The function code for histogram is similar, so if I call histogram, this is a histogram function. So just modify the plot this to include this additional argument. So basically for the plot this to add an additional argument called use box plot default to be true. Okay. Oh, you have done that one?
What do you? So box plot. So you want us to switch to histogram instead of strip chart? So.
No. So it's a choice between box plot and histogram depending on whether you the user want one or the other. You still have the strip chart for anything that is less than threshold, but for more than threshold, if it is use box plot, then do a box plot. Otherwise, do a histogram.
Okay.